Alright guys, welcome back. GM Light here. Today we're going to be talking about the best movies of 2023. Which ones stuck with me the most, which ones I enjoyed the most. And after writing this list down, it's kind of a little bit embarrassing. A lot of franchise shit, horror movies, some capes. So, I think that I do need to expand the movies that I watch a little bit more next year. And there's a lot that I haven't seen that probably would have made the list if I got a chance to check them out before the year ended. Like, I bought Oppenheimer on DVD, haven't seen it yet. I still need to see Godzilla Minus One. There's definitely a few that probably would have made it if I were able to check it out before the end of the year, but time's closing down, so let's get into the list. And first with a few honorable mentions, I really dug the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated movie. That just felt like a great adaptation of these characters. Very enjoyable, fun movie. I'm definitely excited to see what they do next when they get into Shredder and some of the other stuff like that. More turtle-based lore. This one seemed like it kind of took some liberties, which I'm not too crazy about. If you are a fan of the Turtles, you kind of know what I mean. But besides that, a very enjoyable movie. And, doesn't quite make the cut, but I definitely put it out there. Also, Knock at the Cabin. A lot of people seem a lot more mixed on this movie than I did. I really enjoyed it. I think it was one of the best, most compelling horror movies of this year. And also another great M. Night Shyamalan movie, proving that he's got gas in the tank still. He's not a bad director. He just needs the right projects sometimes. Although there's no twist necessarily, it gives you a lot more of a straightforward answer on what's going on in the story. I think that allows it to kind of delve into the characters more and be more focused on that instead of trying to trick you or surprise you. But now let's get into the actual list. Number 10. I think Scream 6 is probably a good number 10 to start out on. Where Scream 5 felt a little bit too safe for me, which I still enjoyed it. I still enjoyed a lot about it. Felt like it didn't take as many risks as it could have besides killing a legacy character, which is pretty much all that Scream 5 does. That was kind of a little bit bold. It still set up new characters well. I think that this was the movie that really made them stand on their own as the new cast of the Scream franchise, which it's such bullshit what's going on with Scream 7 that it's not looking like these guys are going to come back, and it's very unfortunate and such a waste. But at least we have this Scream movie where we get a really great setting in the city, a lot of sequences, chases, great gore, probably the most vicious version of Ghostface that we've seen. It was amazing to have Kirby back, who was definitely one of my favorite characters in the franchise. So overall, everything stacks up to make a great Scream movie, and it's honestly become one of my favorites. So that's number 10. For number 9, Skinamarink. So this is a movie that is very, very weird. By all accounts, a lot of people didn't resonate with this movie, and I don't blame them, and I understand why they wouldn't. It's very slow. It's not particularly exciting. There's not like a script or characters to really latch onto, and the movie's not conducive to everyone having a good experience watching this, but I think that I was able to provide myself the right environment to watch this movie and really get lost in it, because what the movie really does well, in my opinion, is it evokes a feeling, kind of hidden instinctual fear that everyone had when they were a child. They were able to just replicate that weird nostalgic feeling you get to certain images, sounds, cartoons, things like that. It's a little too long. I definitely understand why people didn't click with this movie, but for me, it just provided a feeling, and it was able to pull those emotions out of me that made me feel slightly uncomfortable, unsettled, and it really is an impressive feat from a YouTuber, which always makes me want to root for the movie even more. These weird experimental horror movies. This is one of them. It's not for everybody, but I think that I was able to provide myself with the experience that, allowed me to watch the movie in a way that I think it was meant to be viewed, because it is just an uncomfortable, hypnotizing movie. Very weird. It's very unconventional, but that's what I really liked about it, and that's why it is my number 9. But as for 8, Creed 3, this is one of those franchises where you kind of know what you're getting every time you go. It's like Fast and Furious, which Fast X is another movie that I really enjoyed this year. You pretty much get the same thing. You get every single time different variations. What really matters in these movies is what they do with the human drama and kind of just making that boxing match at the end the pinnacle of whatever's going on between these two opponents. And if you can make the audience care a lot about that human drama, what's going on between those two characters, and making it to the point where when that fight does come at the end, that it has you very pumped, very excited to see what happens, and very invested in who the winner is going to be, that's what really matters, and that definitely happens with Creed 3. Another great Jonathan Majors performance, which, you know, it's unfortunate what happened with him because he is very good in this movie, but it is what it is, so I don't really know what else to say about that. There's definitely some different unique stylistic choices with the fighting, with the boxing, with kind of just this anime inspiration that you get Michael B. Jordan infusing into this movie. It's all pretty cool, and it all worked for me despite, you know, having a huge Rocky-sized hole in this movie. It comes out very good though, so I feel pretty good about putting Creed 3 at number 8. Number 7, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, pretty much the only good Marvel thing to come out this year, and that's just because this movie feels like, you know, some of the glory years of Marvel, some of the better stuff. And the best thing about this movie is that they make you care so much about these characters and their relationship to each other, and you feel genuine heartbreak at the idea that they're drifting apart. They pull on your heartstrings a lot with what's going on with Rocket. That stuff's very dark. It could be a lot if it was not told properly or in the appropriate kind of tone that it was meant to be. This could have fell flat on its face or felt emotionally manipulative, but I don't think that it does that. I think that it was just heartbreaking enough. Makes you feel so bad for Rocket, but also makes you root for him all the more and care about him. It gives him so much more depth as a character, and so I think it definitely deserves to be on this list as number 7. Next up in the number 6 place, it's Five Nights at Freddy's. So this isn't technically the best movie or anything. I understand that a lot of people have problems with this movie, but I liked it a lot. I'm a huge fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, and it's just enjoyable to get to see these characters on the big screen and everything, get to see them adapted into live action, and to see that the creators did take so much time to give the fans what they wanted for once. You know, that's something that's kind of a crazy concept in a video game franchise, but they did definitely do this with the fans in mind. Sometimes they kind of don't let general audiences keep up with the what's going on in the movie, but I think it's very forgivable when you think about how enjoyable this movie turned out to be, how well cast everybody was. You just can't take that away from this movie, and because of that, I definitely felt like it deserved a place on the list. Now moving on to number 5, an original, not IP franchise or movie, Cobweb. This movie was a really nice surprise. I kind of wish that it was released at a better time. It pretty much got buried by Barbenheimer, and it really did feel like a fall movie. It definitely had that harvest autumn feeling, and the way that the movie unwinds is it starts out pretty slow. You have a lot of questions, you don't exactly know what's going on, and as things start to unwind, you start to see what's really going on. It turns into a pretty satisfying little horror movie, and someone commented this under my review for this movie, but it really does play almost like a fairy tale in some kind of weird twisted way, and it is that feeling. It's Anthony Starr's performance in this movie that I think made it one of my favorite movie experiences from this year, and for that it definitely deserves number 5. Now coming in at the top 4 spots for the year of 2023, number 4 is Talk to Me. I heard a lot of hype before it came out, and I was really excited to check it out when I finally did. I definitely liked it, but I feel like as more time's gone by, the more I've thought about it, the more that I've definitely endeared to it and enjoyed it more. This is a really good original horror movie. I love the way that was incepted, the way that this idea came about, because it's a really neat story about these YouTubers that got the chance to make this very interesting A24 horror movie that has enough broad appeal, but also is elevated enough to where it kind of transcends the genre a little bit and just delivered a really appealing experience to a lot of different people. I'm so glad this movie came out the way that it did and the condition that it did, because it really is that good. So number 4 is Talk to Me. Now getting down to the number 3 spot, Saw X. It's so good to be a Saw fan again. A lot of people were not happy with the last couple of entries. It feels like it's kind of been a thing of just shitting on the Saw franchise for the last 10 years. Every time there's a new movie, everyone's like rolling their eyes, oh come on, another one. But I've always been in the camp that you can never have too many Saw movies, and I'm glad that they were able to deliver one that brought the fans back, brought the general audiences back. People seem to really like this movie. I really love this movie, and I'm glad that it came out the way that it did, and that they were able to give you a full movie about John Kramer in a way that was definitely interesting, fresh, delivers a different, unique Saw experience from the other movies. And as a Saw fan, I couldn't be happier to see that it was able to do those things. Now for number 2, this is a movie that has kind of just turned into a very controversial thing. Feels like there's a lot of forced hate directed towards it that I've never really understood, and it feels like the only answer is bad CGI. You know, not to discount legitimate criticisms because this movie is flawed, but it's definitely not as bad as a lot of other people say. And I'm talking about The Flash, of course. So what's so great about this movie is I think inherently it has a really compelling and emotional story at its core that allows for the more fun stuff like re-experiencing Man of Steel through a different lens, getting Keaton's Batman, Supergirl getting Zod back. All that stuff happens because of a rich story that makes sense. And the thing that I feel like people forget about is that, like, this isn't just a cameo fest, nostalgia baiting movie. This is a movie about the Flash and kind of him looking at 2 different angles of his life. You get this version of him that is, by all accounts, a better person because of the hardship that he's faced, and he is the way he is because of what he's experienced. And then you have this other version of him that's soft, he can't let go, and ultimately the villain of the movie is him not being able to let go. A lot of people thought it was corny, a lot of people like to dunk on it a lot, but I thought that stuff really made for a strong, hearty core to this movie and put it leagues above, you know, the other DC movies that came out this year. I'm more acknowledging of some of the flaws now that some time's passed. You know, you kind of hear everything and it's hard for them not to get in your head. And of course, the CGI is just not acceptable. It's like not okay that it's as bad as it is. That goes without saying. But I was able to look past that because I thought what the story provides and what these different versions of Barry provide, and kind of the themes that are driving those. And then you also have how Batman's life is reflected in these 2 different versions of him, Keaton and Affleck. It all comes together in a really, really exciting, emotional movie, and I think that it definitely deserved my number 2 spot because it's also the movie that I rewatched the most. But for number 1, what I thought was the biggest surprise of the year, I thought this was a very interesting, weird movie, Infinity Pool. I wish that I kind of rewatched it and freshened up on it before I talked about it again, but I found this movie to be so mind-bending, odd, unnerving in a lot of ways, and it makes you think. What I like about this movie is that as you're tracking along, you think you have it all figured out, but the movie actually pulls the rug out from under you a couple of times and kind of acts as if, you know, those thoughts that you have in your head where you think you're smarter than the movie, you get totally proven wrong because of the different directions that it takes instead of taking the direction you think it's going to take. It makes you question a lot of things. It makes you feel very disoriented, and by the end, once the movie is over, it leaves you with a lot of questions, but not in a way that I think was unsatisfying or a bit of a cop-out. It's that the implications of it are pretty frightening and confusing. So without a doubt, this is the movie that just impressed me the most, surprised me. I really like this movie a lot, and it definitely deserves the top spot for 2023 best movie of the year, in my opinion. Honestly, it's been kind of a little bit of a mid-year for movies. A lot have underperformed, disappointed, and I feel like my list wasn't the best, but overall there were definitely some gems in here, a lot of high highs, and I'm sure that I'm going to start to watch some more movies that I missed throughout the year, and then that would probably change my list. But let me know what your guys' favorite movies of 2023 are in the comment section. Love to hear. I'm GM Light. Have a good one.